Hello everyone, meteorologist Chris Sowers here. You know, people come up to me all the time and they ask me, who do you trust to do work on your home? Well, for me, the answer is simple. It's Bobby and Tim at Realistic Exterior. They've earned a reputation for quality roofing and siding across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware by doing the job right and standing by the work that they do. Just take a look at all of their 5-star reviews. That right there pretty much tells you everything you need to know. Try their free AI roof estimate tool. It'll give you a ballpark estimate before you even schedule an appointment, so you'll know what to expect. Now, I have to tell you something about this Bobby. He's just one of those guys you don't forget. Visit realisticexterior.com and watch his videos. You'll laugh, you'll see his personality, his passion, and you'll understand why homeowners trust him and his team. For quality craftsmanship, honest service, and a contractor that you can count on, call Realistic Exterior. The weather can be unpredictable at times, but your contractor shouldn't be. Hello, hello. Meteorologist Chris Sowers here. How is everybody doing? It is Tuesday, August 11th. What a nice day this turned out to be. Not bad at all, actually. We had a nice canopy of clouds pretty much all day, thin clouds, and what that did was it helped to keep the temperatures in line a little bit. You weren't getting, sun blasted today, and it felt pretty good. We're moving into a time here now where we're finally going to start to see some light at the end of the tunnel, where the humidity, oh my gosh, may finally drop. Where the temperatures, oh my gosh, may finally drop. Like, holy cow, it's only been like 10 weeks, right? That's what it feels like. But it looks like finally we're getting ready to move into a much cooler, less humid, quieter. That's all. They're all key words here. Cooler, less humid, and quieter weather pattern. We just got to get through honestly, just one more day. Tomorrow's really warm. I don't think we're in the 90s tomorrow. It's a really warm day, though. But the humidity starts to drop. This is a nice surprise that we saw on the forecast modeling that came in today. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like the humidity wants to drop out a little bit tomorrow. Tomorrow might be an incredible day around the Delaware and the Lehigh Valleys. Could be a couple of showers during the morning hours, and they're out, and that's it. That's it. I mean, so, it really looks like a nice day. Thursday, the humidity comes up again. All right, it's sort of a prefrontal day. So it's down tomorrow, up Thursday, and then down again Friday. Okay? Hello. And then once it goes down Friday, that's going to set the stage for an absolutely incredible weekend. I mean, incredible. We're talking about low temperatures, perhaps down into the mid-50s in the Lehigh Valley. I mean, really nice stuff. With no humidity, I mean, think about that, right? When you've got, especially this time of the year, when you have no humidity and temperatures down into the mid-50s for morning lows, after what we've just been through, oh, gosh, it's going to feel incredible. Now, let's quickly get to the radar, and then we'll get into a couple things regarding watches and warnings. And you know what? This was another pleasant surprise here. Yesterday, we caught a huge break as far as severe weather is concerned, where everything kind of parted, the storms, the line of storms yesterday that was approaching from the west, it did like a split. One area went to the north, one area went to the south, and sandwiched in between was us, and we got away scot-free. Today, that's it right there. I mean, we really haven't seen much. There were a couple heavier cells earlier, and we have had a couple of reports. Matter of fact, let me toggle on a couple of these. We've had a couple of reports of some wind damage here. This right here, multiple reports of trees and wires down. I believe that is Monroe County. And then here's another one from Monroe County, multiple reports of trees and wires down in Middle Smithfield Township. It's right around 5 o'clock. That wasn't that long ago, actually. Here's another one in Monroe, trees down, time estimated by radar 6:27. And then one last one here was trees down. Again, time estimated, so that's about a 6:37 report. So, we've had a couple of pretty good storms, but they've been way the heck up there. They're all the way up in the Poconos today, and that's where they're staying. I think we're done. All right, I don't think, not that we even ever got started today, right? But, it's just like, there's things that you look at, okay? Yesterday, for example, we had that little cluster of showers and thunderstorms push through around noon. And I think that stabilized the atmosphere around the Philadelphia area. So when the line actually approached, it was really hard for things to get going because the air was a lot more stable. Today, you had all this cloud cover. All right, and so what does that do? That prevents the sun, the full direct impact from the sun. And so that, too, will help stabilize an environment, an atmosphere a little bit more maybe than what the modeling was showing. So, we didn't have an enhanced risk, we had an elevated risk for thunderstorms that would approach severe criteria, severe levels yesterday. We didn't get it. And we had a level 1 risk today. Same thing. Didn't get it. So, it's good to see. Again, that is pretty much all right, that we're talking about. That's it. And that's going to end pretty quickly. Okay? Now, some of the things that we're going to talk about, I made a post earlier today, and I got a tremendous amount of feedback on it. So thank you guys for participating in it. And I'm going to start to do more posts like this where I want to get you guys involved because, what I need to know, is what frustrates you, what in terms of weather, what makes you happy, what would you like to see more of, what would you like to see less of. The only way that someone like me can help you guys in situations like that, since I can't read anyone's minds, is if we talk about it. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of comments over the last, I'm going to say 3-4 weeks now, it's probably been about a month, is there's a lot of folks that are getting a little frustrated with all the watches that are being issued and we're not getting anything, and then warnings that are being issued and we're not getting anything. And so I'm starting to see a lot of comments that are kind of focused towards that. So what I wanted to do here was I wanted to explain how a lot of this works to kind of give you a better understanding. And that way, because look, obviously you get, on your phone, your phone's going beep, beep, ding, 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 all these alerts and everything, and you're probably like, oh, geez, and you got to run indoors, right? And you got to stay inside till the storm comes and goes. And in some cases, if it's tornado warning, you're in your basement and nothing, and nothing takes place. And so it frustrates you, right? Because it impacts your day. Whatever it was you were doing, now you've got to put that on hold to get to your safe spot, So I get it. So again, what I want to do here is I just want to focus on how the whole process works, okay? And how it starts, the middle portion, and how it ends. And this way you guys have a better understanding of this, and that way next time, if something does happen, and it doesn't pan out, at least you understood why that warning was issued in the first place. You know what I mean? So we're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to talk about, again, the cooler, drier, less active weather that's heading this way. I think a lot of you guys are going to enjoy it. Saturday's incredible. Oh my gosh. Saturday, just circle it. I've been telling you for days now, circle Saturday on the calendar right now, or set an alarm or something. Everybody should be outside. Nobody should be watching TV. I don't care what time of day it is. Nobody should be in front of the TV watching TV on Saturday. I want everybody outside and enjoying the day, because you can't get a better day than Saturday, all right, for the month of August. We had a couple of these in July, all right. We're going to get another one now in August. It might be one of the night. You're not going to get better. You're not going to get better than Saturday. So make the plans outdoors now and just enjoy it. We're talking about morning lows in the 50s across a large part of the area with no humidity. Afternoon highs in a large part of the area. Think about this. So it's going to be, today's the 11th. What is that? Saturday the 14th, Saturday the 15th, something like that. The middle of August. And we're talking about high temperatures under a blanket of sunshine, mind you. It's not like we're talking about storms and big, cloud deck and all of that from storms far in the distance. We're not talking about anything like that. We're talking about full sun and temperatures struggling to reach 80 degrees across a large part of the area. Now, the city might hit like low to mid 80s. City's always warmer because it's an urban, hotspot. But the surrounding suburbs like Allentown and Quakertown and, even in some of the Pine Barrens, 80, 81. That might be the high on Saturday in your neighborhood. So get ready for that. I mean, it's going to be incredible. So, all right, what do you want to get into first? You want to get into the forecast first? Do you guys want to talk about, the whole watch warning system, how all that works first? Let me know in the comments section right now. I'll keep talking, but give me a couple comments here. Let's see how you guys want to take these one at a time. While you're doing that, again, I just want to, because a lot of people are starting to tune in now, and I want to make sure everybody caught this. So all that we have on the radar at the moment is that. That's it. And honestly, I think that's all you're going to see tonight. I mean, there could be a straggler left over that drops out of Carbon and Monroe and maybe into the Lehigh Valley, but we are quickly running out of time. It's already 7:30. It's already starting to, not that it's getting dark, but, the rays of the sun aren't nearly as direct as they were a few hours ago. So, we're already starting to approach that time where thunderstorms rapidly decrease in intensity. All right, so there could be a straggler behind what you see in front of you there, but, it would be, the exception and not the rule. I think in large part we're done here. Okay, so I've got a couple people chiming in, and they are saying, oh, hi from Salem. How are you, Tina? And we've got hi from Margaret. She's in Philly. Forecast first. Forecast first. Watches and warnings first. Forecast first. Watches and warnings first. Why? I shouldn't have asked. I knew I was going to get, both ways here. Let's do this. I mean, when you see the comments, it is like literally split right down the middle. Some of you are saying forecast first. Some of you are saying watches and warnings first. Let's do this. Let's get the forecast out of the way first, okay? And then, because honestly, there's not a lot going on, so we'll get that out of the way, and then I'll just dedicate the rest of this to, how this whole watch warning system works. And look, I mean, I can stay on here all night if you want. I can answer as many questions as, and let's use this opportunity. Any questions, and I don't care what time of year it is, summer, spring, fall, winter, any question you have, fire away, and I'll attempt to answer those too. Okay, bring Paigey out. Oh, Dolores, I wish I could. She just went down. She's like, I was just asking Lori if she could come down, and she's already out like a light switch. So she must have had a busy day. I took Murphy to the doctors up there in Mount Laurel. I'll tell you how that went too in a second. As we have a new plan of attack here to get him healthy. Okay, so I'll tell you what, let's get into the forecast first. Here's a look at the dew points, all right? We've all been down this road before. Dew points, this is how it works in the Philadelphia, actually a large part of the area, is once you break 60 degrees, it starts to become a little more humid. Under 60, you're in the comfort zone. We haven't been there in ages, right? It's been so muggy. As a matter of fact, once you reach 70 or higher, you're in the tropics, all right? That's what it's like day in and day out in the tropics. We've been in the 70s forever. All right, it's been a long stretch of muggy weather for us. All right, so here is first thing tomorrow morning, right around 8 o'clock in the morning. And notice the 70s to the south, mid-60s to the north. So we're going to start out. Oh, big. What the heck is that? Almost looks like a bomber. I tell you, I love where I am here because I guess I'm in the flight path, and so you get these planes flying by. I mean, you guys have seen, right? When the stadiums will have the jets fly over, they come right over my house, and then right over the stadium. I guess I'm in the flight path here, but that was really, really neat. Okay, so here's a look at the dew points. This is 8 o'clock in the morning. All right, here's 9, here's 10. So the humidity is going to come up a little bit early in the day, but then watch this. We start mixing out. Look at this by afternoon. I mean, we're talking mid-60s all the way down to the Delaware Bay. I mean, yeah, I'll take that. Look at the Poconos. You're in the 50s. This is going to feel a lot better. Now, the modeling had not been showing this. All of a sudden, with today's update that came out around noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, voila, it showed that. So this is a nice little boundary that's going to push through here. We drop those dew points down into the mid-60s tomorrow afternoon. It's going to feel fabulous. It's still technically a little humid, but it's going to feel great because of where we've been, right, over the last week and a half. All right, and then Thursday it comes up again. All right, see this? See that? Yuck. More 70s, all right, more uncomfortable air. But as we get into Friday, all right, maybe a little humidity early, all right, through about maybe 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Look at this by afternoon. Look at this come down, all right, by evening. And this is why I was saying this yesterday. If you have plans to eat outdoors on Friday, oh, you picked a great day. I mean, the humidity by the time, let's see, most people what? You eat at 6, 7 o'clock, That's what the dew points are going to look like at 7. Low 60s. All right, low 60s to the north, mid 60s to the south, and then just a couple hours after that, we're almost down into the 50s already. Here is Saturday morning. Look at this. This is the lowest, all right, right here. We're down into the mid 50s. Incredible. All right, and then look at the lows. These are the lows Saturday morning. Look at this. Whew. I mean, can you imagine what this is? We were joking around yesterday, but, you know, I'm serious when I say this. Set the alarm for like 6 in the morning on Saturday. Get out on the deck, the back patio. Get one of those, you know, those light blankets. You know, I've got like I'm sure many of you got patio furniture. Sit out on the patio furniture, kick your feet up, maybe put a light blanket over you, have a cup of coffee, look at your phone, because nobody does the paper anymore, so look at your phone and get caught up, you know, with what happened overnight while you were sleeping, and just enjoy it. I mean, it's going to be incredible, absolutely incredible. And then, as we get into Sunday morning, look at this. More of the same. All right, so here's Saturday morning. I mean, look at this, 60, 59, 60 in Hamilton, and a large part of the Pine Barrens are in the upper 50s to right around 60. That's really, really nice. Look at Mount Pocono. Look at that funny number. It says 51. Can you imagine? 51? It's going to feel great. 59 in, what is that? I forget the name of that. I guess you're near Paradise out there in Lancaster County. I forget that. Maybe it's Honeybrook out there in western Chester County, 59. About 59 or 60 in Westchester, 58 in Pottstown, Reading 59, Quakertown 57, Allentown 57. A couple communities right there in Hunterdon County in the 50s. Sussex County in northern New Jersey, about 53 or 54. I mean, it's going to be nice. That's Saturday morning. And Sunday morning is more of the same. And then Monday morning next week, we start to climb a little bit again. But that's some nice stuff. That is some nice stuff. And that's it. That's it. That's really all we're tracking. So tomorrow, it's a less humid day. All right, let's summarize all this real quick. Tomorrow's a less humid day. All right, it's a little humid in the morning. Humidity comes down during the afternoon. The afternoon's really, really nice. And then Thursday, the humidity comes up a little bit again. All right, back into the upper 60s, low 70s. It's a touch uncomfortable. And then Friday goes right back down, and it stays down. Okay, so that'll be really, really nice. Friday morning, Saturday morning, you're talking about extremely low temperatures for the month of August. It's going to be really, really nice. That's it. No more thunderstorms. The next chance at thunderstorms, I believe, you know, assuming we get away with nothing tomorrow morning, there's a chance. There is a system, one of those clusters that we're watching out to the west. Right now, a large chunk of the modeling has taken that cluster and pushed it south. All right, and so they're suggesting that the track is going to bypass the Philadelphia area to the south, which is good. A couple of showers are possible in and around here. It's early in the morning, but that's it. And then by afternoon, you know, it's really, really nice. Thursday was nice. Friday, Saturday, you know, Sunday, there could be, who's saying upper 40s for where? If you're saying the Poconos, I don't doubt that 1 second. I mean, you just saw the low. It said 51, right? So, yeah, could you get a 49 up there? Absolutely. I don't doubt that for a second. You know, that's really it, you know, as far as the forecast is concerned. What I do want to show you is this. All right, let's take a quick look at the tropics, because that's something that we haven't really talked about, because we haven't had the need to talk about the tropics, right? We had that one little system that kind of paralleled the Gulf Coast, right, the shoreline there, and it went from, let's say, Gulf Shores west into the bayous of Louisiana, and they got some rain out there in southeast Texas too. But now what you're going to see here is it's about to get a little more active, and we're starting to get active in the Cape Verde section of the Atlantic. All right, and that's where you got to watch closely, because that's how you get your big, big hurricanes. The Cape Verde Islands, all right, if you were to take a look at this map, right, focus on the far right-hand part of it. You see Africa there, right? That's Africa on the far right. You see that little tiny, I guess, cluster of islands there to the left, west, left of Africa. That's the Cape Verde Islands right there. So what's meant by a Cape Verde storm is you'll get a wave coming off of Africa, and it starts to organize, get better organized around the Cape Verde Islands, and then it travels west. Well, what do you got in front of it? Nothing but warm water. So you've got days and days and sometimes weeks for this thing to get better organized and to strengthen, okay? Some of your biggest storms in recorded history come from the coast of Africa, all right, the Cape Verde storms. So what we're about to see here is this section get a little more active. Watch this. See? But notice what happens as it approaches. All right, let me go back. You see this? Let's go back to the very beginning. All right, so there's nothing out there. All right, you've got some little rinky-dink disturbance in the northern Atlantic. That is absolutely nothing to worry about. But watch this. Watch towards the Cape Verde section, the MDR, main development region. See it? Now watch what happens. That's the Leeward Islands. It's approaching the Leeward Islands, St. Thomas, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, Puerto Rico. Whatever this disturbance is going to end up being in the open waters of the Atlantic here, it will be approaching the Leeward Islands eventually, and then it crosses the Leeward Islands, probably as a tropical depression, or maybe even a tropical storm. Just depends on, there's a lot of Saharan dust out there, and there's a little bit of shear. So whether or not this thing can get better organized is a big question mark right now, but let's assume for a second it can. All right, let's assume for a second it does. And it approaches the Leeward Islands. Watch what happens. Notice how you don't see anything else? Because there's so much shear and dust right there over the Western Caribbean and the Gulf, all right, that whatever develops here in the middle of the Atlantic has no shot at all. Well, you know what? You can never say never, right? How about we rephrase that? Very little shot. I guess something could happen beyond what you see here, but it's going to be fighting shear, it's going to be fighting Saharan dust, it's going to be fighting a lot of elements. So the chances of it getting better organized and becoming something that the U.S. mainland has to watch out for, the odds of that are very slim. All right? Yes, anything could happen, right? It's weather. But the odds of it are happening are slim, okay? And as we progress along, look what happens. That's it. Here's a look at the model, okay? So, again, what I want you guys to focus on here, all right, focus on the right-hand part of the screen and watch. You're going to see these two little areas try to spin, okay, just to the west or left of the of the continent of Africa. Watch this. See the spin? But watch what happens as they get closer and closer to the U.S. mainland. See? They're coming. It takes a long time. And this is how these storms get very, very intense, because they're sitting over the warm water for so long. Look at that. This is days. We're over a week now. All right? And what happens to them? Look. Look. They vanish. See that? This one holds together a little bit longer and vanishes. Let me go back as they approach. All right? So that you got two of them right there. Watch as they approach. The first one completely vanishes, gone. And then there's the second one right there. Quickly on its heels. Maybe it lasts a little bit longer, and then that's gone. They're just going to run it. You see that big counterclockwise swirl over the northeast and the mid-Atlantic? There's just too much. There's too much right now. And again, this is what we were talking about with the El Nino. This is why the National Hurricane Center came out with its reduced numbers, its lower numbers than what we've seen over the last several years. This is why Colorado State came out with a less impactful hurricane season, because El Ninos trigger all this wind in the atmosphere. Wind that these tropical systems have to fight. It's called shear. There's too much of that. The waters aren't they're warm. All right, it's the middle of summer, but they're not nearly as warm as what they've been this time, hi buddy, over the last several summers, okay? And so you got all of that, and you got the Saharan dust. It's just too much. It's too much for these storms right now to fight. What you're going to need in order to get a big hit, okay? Hi buddy, in order to get something that you really got to monitor, I'm talking about for the U.S. mainland, you're going to need to time things out just right. The shear's got to be weakened dramatically. Because think of the shear as almost like a protective bubble, if you will, okay? As these storms approach, it's a bubble that's saying, nope, you're not getting any further, okay? So until that shear weakens, you've got like an invisible protective force field around the U.S. mainland, which is fine by us, right? And you've also got the Saharan dust. All right. Okay, let's talk about how these watches and warnings. Let me let Murphy in real quick. It looks like he wants to get inside. You want to go in, bud? All right. Here you go, bud. Okay, let's start out with the, let's start out with the basics on how all of this works, okay? So you've got the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, okay? These forecasters out here in Norman are some of the most incredible forecasters in the entire world. I mean, they are really, really good when it comes to severe weather. I mean, these guys don't mess around. They know everything and everything about everything, and and so on and so forth. They're really, really good. So what they do is they'll put out what's called outlooks. And they'll have a day 1, which would be today, a day 2, which would be tomorrow, and a day 3, which would be, what's today? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, okay? 1, 2, 3. All right, that's their short term. That's the time frame that they're looking at. Day 1, day 2, day 3. So they put out outlooks, and that's where the level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5 come in. All of that is from the Storm Prediction Center, the SPC. Okay, then they also have a days 4 through 8. Now this is something that it's a lot more distant, I guess you could say, in the future. So they don't put a lot of effort's not the right word. They don't put a lot of emphasis on it at that point, okay? Because it's so far out and things are going to change. But the outlooks come out first. All of that is done by the Storm Prediction Center. And then let's say you have the SPC puts out a level 2, all right, a scattered. That's what they call scattered threat for the Philadelphia area. And you got a line of thunderstorms approaching from the west. The Storm Prediction Center is going to coordinate with the National Weather Service offices here in the Mid-Atlantic. State College, Sterling down there in the Baltimore, D.C. area, Mount Holly here in the Philadelphia area. So they're going to be talking, all right? They're going to go back and forth, all right? Hey, there's a big cluster. There's a big line of thunderstorms approaching. They're going to start talking. Maybe it's a severe thunderstorm watch. Maybe we'll put out a tornado watch, based on what the conditions in the environment look like. Okay? And so they collaborate, if you will, and then a watch gets issued by the National Weather Service. Okay? Outlooks come from the Storm Prediction Center. The watches come from the local National Weather Service offices and the Storm Prediction Center too, all right? But all warnings, all right, and then the line's on you, okay, and warnings start getting issued. All warnings are issued by the National Weather Service, not me, not Cecily, not any kind of forecaster out there. None of us issue warnings. None of us issue watches. None of us issue outlooks. That is all done by either the Storm Prediction Center or the National Weather Service. It's our job to relay the message, okay? And so one thing, when I ask the question, that's how the whole process works. Usually warnings, what the goal with a warning, doesn't matter what it is, flash flood warning, severe thunderstorm warning, tornado warning, the goal is lead time, okay? They want to try and give you as much time as possible to prepare for what could potentially happen or what is actually taking place, all right? Obviously, they want everybody to get, into their safe spot. So a lot of times warnings are going to run for about maybe 40 minutes. Sometimes 45. That's about the block of how long those warnings run, depending on how fast the storms are moving. So again, it's all about lead time. One of the things that I have noticed, and I saw a lot of comments about this when I asked this question today. One of the things that I noticed was a lot of people were talking about they think that the warnings, the polygons, are way too big all of a sudden this year, and they're warning a large part of the area that doesn't need to be warned. Maybe you've got, for example, let's take all of Burlington County. Maybe you put, and this is just as an example. I'm not saying this is what's going on, but I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's say you suddenly put all of Burlington County under a warning, okay? And maybe the heart of the storm is really only on northwest Burlington County. You know what I mean? But yet everybody's phone went off for the entire county. And again, I'm just using this as an example. It could be Ocean County. It could be, whatever the case may be. But the point is, the polygons seem to be really, really big this year. And so I've noticed that too, okay? And you'll see me when I'm doing the live coverage. I'll start drawing lines and I'll say, okay, the warning is this big. I'm going to draw this line. Everybody north of this line, you don't have anything to worry about when it comes to severe weather, okay? I do agree. I think the polygons are a little big. I don't know why the sudden change, okay? But I do agree with you guys there. I think those severe weather polygons have suddenly been made just too big. And I think they should be, cutting them down a little bit, because what you're doing is, and one of the other things that I've read time and time again on these comments was the anxiety that people have when these warnings get issued. A lot of people said that to me. A lot of people said that, not that they panic, but It's very, very stressful for them when their phones are going off. It's very, very stressful for them when they're seeing the crawls on the bottom of the television screen. And then, they get themselves all worked up and nothing happens. So I do understand that. And given that I've been here now and I started this platform the first couple of days of June, I've seen it time and time again where I think the polygons are too big. So I will give you that. Maybe that is something that, if the National Weather Service is even listening to me right now, maybe that's something that they can work on. I don't know. Honestly, this is the first year that I've ever noticed that they were as big as they were. But, again, the number one priority from the National Weather Service is safety. Okay? Maybe, and this is all just hypotheticals, but maybe at the time that forecaster who's issuing the warnings isn't 100% sure whether or not maybe the storm wobbles a little bit to the north. I don't know. And maybe so they feel like they have to make it that big just to be on the, safe side. I don't know. Another thing, what was the other thing that I was seeing a lot of comments about? Obviously, a lot of the comments were, okay, and this is the big one. This is what needs to be explained. This is the big one. So a lot of comments were, time and time again, I get under a severe thunderstorm warning and nothing happens. And we're left saying, that's it? What happened? Where's the storm? Okay, so I get it. I totally understand this too. And I do feel the frustration there because, again, I've seen warnings where I question why they're issued, okay? I do see it. But there is something that you have to understand on how this all works, okay? And Rob and I, when we were doing the coverage yesterday, we kind of touched on this briefly. So let me read a statement, okay? This is a statement here. Oh, tell me I lost it. Oh, shoot. I had a great statement. All right, hold on. Bear with me 1 second. Let me try and dig it up. Darn. All right, let's see if that works. Darn. I thought maybe I took a snapshot of it. I didn't. Darn it. All right, I'm not going to be able to word this as technically sound as I wanted to. I had it all there and my phone that was weird. Okay. So what you have to remember is, the National Weather Service, depending on what radar they're using, okay, they could be using the Fort Dix one, they could be using the radar down in Dover. Philadelphia International has its own radar. There's a radar out in State College. There's a radar in Sterling. All right, so there's so many of them around here. So depending on what radar they're using, let's just say for this example, they're using the Fort Dix radar site, okay? They're going to shoot that beam, all right? And so you have to remember, when you're looking at a storm, here's a surface and you're going all the way up, into the middle levels of the atmosphere here, and they're shooting that beam in. They may see something in the storm, okay, that's alerting them, that they say, okay, maybe the downburst is being projected to be very intense. Maybe that day we have an environment where you have a lot of helicity. or a situation where updrafts can spin, okay? Maybe you have something like that. Maybe you have a lot of wind energy and they're worried about downburst winds or microbursts or something like that. And so maybe just off the deck, maybe a mile up, maybe a little bit more than a mile up, they're seeing something that's saying, uh-oh, all right, this could be 60, 70 mile an hour winds just off the deck. Given how unstable the environment is, there's a decent shot this could be dropped down to the surface. Okay, so they pop the warning. All right, now, whether or not the wind actually gets down to the surface is a different story. But you have to issue the warning, because if it does get down to the surface and you suddenly have a 70 mile an hour, let's say you go from, I don't know, maybe winds of 15, 20 miles per hour, and then all of a sudden, wham, you get hit with a 70 mile an hour gust out of nowhere, because you're outside, right? You can be outside in a 10 or 15 mile an hour gust. That's nothing. That's a breezy day. A breezy day is windier than that. But then all of a sudden you get hit with a 70 mile an hour wind and you're outside. That'll topple trees, that'll snap trees, that'll bring down power lines. All right, so they may see something strong enough to meet the criteria for a severe storm. It could also be hail. Maybe they're seeing a hail core off the deck at some point in the middle levels of the atmosphere. Same thing, they might say, okay, that downburst, that downdraft can force this down to the surface. We got to get everybody to safety, so they're going to issue the warning. All right, so that's kind of why they're issuing the warnings the way that they are. It's all about safety. We don't want any fatality. Nobody wants fatalities on their hands, right? We don't want injuries. We don't want people getting struck by lightning. So, there's more. I'm sure there's more to it. I don't work for the National Weather Service. It would be neat, though, one day. I thought about this, and I might call them and ask if we ever get into the middle of a severe weather event, to have me do one of these lives and just stay there. And so you guys can see, you can watch how their forecaster operates, how their guy manning the radar, what he's looking at. When he says, okay, there it is, we gotta push the warning. Okay, it might be neat if I'm able to ever do that one day. I was going to call the National Weather Service. I don't even know if they would allow anything like that, but if they do, I'll try and set something like that up. So when we do get into another severe weather event, I'll stream it live. I'll stream the whole thing live if I can do it. And you guys can see exactly all the hard work that actually gets put into all of this. They're not just, they're not just throwing warnings out just to throw warnings out. It's all about safety. But, that's part of why the warnings get issued the way that they are. There's 3 things that they're looking at that can turn a regular thunderstorm into a severe thunderstorm. Okay? It's either 1, hail, an inch in diameter. It's a pretty big hailstone. 2, winds 58 miles per hour or higher. Or 3, a tornado. If any one of that criteria is met in a thunderstorm, it's now severe, okay? Or if the National Weather Service feels like any one of those criteria could be met really, really soon, boom, they issue the warning, okay? Now, winter storm warnings are a lot different. There's like criteria, and it's broken down by county, okay? For example, South Jersey doesn't need nearly as much snow to get under a winter storm warning as the Lehigh Valley does, because the Lehigh Valley typically gets a lot more snow than South Jersey does, okay? So, not that we're not prepared down here in South Jersey, but they're a little more used to it up there in the Lehigh Valley. So that's all different. Okay, so I hope that kind of gives you a better understanding of how all this goes, how it all works. So I don't issue warnings, I don't issue watches, and I don't issue outlooks. Neither does any forecaster that you watch. Okay, that all comes from the SPC and the National Weather Service. SPC, some of the best forecasters in the entire world, okay? And I'm serious, I'm not exaggerating, they're that good. Same thing with the National Hurricane Center. They have some really good talent there. Some of these guys are really, really good. And again, the National Weather Service offices, their number one concern is your safety. So, whether or not we get that hail to the ground, whether or not we get that wind to the surface, that's the question mark. A lot of times it does happen, but lately there are quite a few times where it doesn't happen, okay? And all of this has changed too. I remember when I first got into weather, it wasn't like that. They would wait until, I'm trying to think what year this was. So if you remember, Doppler radar came out, when we really started to be able to see winds in a storm. Doppler radar came out in the mid-90s, I think like 93 or 94, something like that. Prior to that, no one was able to even see wind speed using a radar. Then Doppler radar, the technology became more advanced. Doppler radar came out. Let's just say, I forget the year, but let's just say it's 94, okay? I know it's in the mid-90s somewhere, but let's just say it's 94. Now, all of a sudden, you can see winds in a thunderstorm, okay? And so now you can start issuing warnings and have a little bit more comfort knowing, okay, look, I see this wind here, whereas before you couldn't see it. And, it's not that it's a guess, but obviously prior to the Doppler radar coming out, it was, a lot more difficult to issue a warning then than it is now when Doppler radar, the advancement in technology. And then right around 2012, dual pole came out. And then after that, we had another, I think it's called the SIPS or something upgrade. I forget the name. And I think that came out in like 2016 or 2017. I mean, we just keep getting these advancements, in the radar. And so now, if you ever, and this is part of the reason why climate change has become very political and I try to stay away from it. But this is why I never talk about the number of warnings now versus back then being a sign of climate change. Well, you couldn't detect anything back then because you didn't have the technology to do it. So I hear, I forget her name, it was on GMA, some forecast, I forget her name. I don't even know if she's still there anymore. She started mentioning, and this is going back about 3 years, she started mentioning You know, how climate change, look at all the warnings we have now. And I'm like, hello? we didn't have Doppler radar back then. Of course there's going to be more warnings. So, you know, but again, the primary goal here is to keep everybody safe. Okay? Alan says, in the 70s, I was born and raised in New Jersey. We used to watch... did you type that right? We used to watch... Okay, Alan Cupsey? I don't know if this is typed correctly. I'm going to try and read this. So, I was born in the 70s. I was born and raised in New Jersey. Something about a New York station. And they didn't have all the computers that they got today. And that guy had the weather right every day. Very rarely did he get... Look, Alan, you can say that. I'll take your word for that on that. How can I comment? That's your opinion. I'm sure he missed forecasts. We all do. And if you think for 1 second that there's a forecaster that never missed forecasts, you're wrong. And if somebody out there is telling you they've never missed a forecast, they're lying to you. Everybody misses forecasts. There's nobody perfect in this game. There's just not. I mean, I have a pretty good track record, and I will blow a forecast. But the difference with me is, I'll let you know, and I'll even give you the floor on a comment and say, okay, I bombed this one. Go ahead, light me up in the comment section. Just keep it PG rated. I've done that before. You know, so I won't. You know, look, nobody's perfect. They're just not. Let's see. We used to watch... Is that the guy's name? Text and Tony? I guess that's what you're saying. Okay. Okay, so Nancy's got a good question. She's saying, tell us how the apps on our phones... Tell us how the apps on our phones aren't accurate. Okay. That's a really good question. You know what? And I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgot about that. So the problem with the apps, okay, so as a forecaster, okay, I've been doing this for 26 years, almost 27 now. Got my degree in early 2000, and I've been, forecasting ever since on a professional stage. So we use forecast models. You have CAMS data, all right, convection allowing models, very high resolution stuff. You have long-range models, global models, European GFS. You have their ensemble packages, okay, which is kind of like a blend. You've got all this data out there, okay? And that's what we use to put a forecast together. You use the forecast cone, okay? It's a shape of a cone. You start at the top of the atmosphere and you work your way down to the surface. It's called the forecast cone. That is how you should be forecasting. There is no other way. If you want an accurate way, that is how you forecast. You look at what's going on in the upper levels first, and then you work your way down to the surface. That's how you're taught, okay? That's like the first way. That's basic 101. That's how you're taught, okay? That's how it all works. With the apps, the problem is you don't know where the information's coming from. They might not even be using any of the forecast models. And the problem with that is every one of these models that we work with, they have a bias. They have their strong points, they have their weak points. And so as storms are approaching, I can say, okay, this model is printing out a lot of snow, but this model typically does that. So I'm going to disregard this. I'm going to use this one right here, which usually is a little more tame when it comes to printing out snowfall totals. Okay? But the data in these apps, we don't know where any of it comes from. A lot of these companies, they don't use those models. They're not using the GFS. Maybe some of them are, but they're not using the stuff that we would typically use. They're using whatever their algorithms use. None of us know what it is. So, a perfect example, when I was living in Florida this past winter, my mom texted me and she was like, why are we getting 20-something inches of snow? And I was like, what? Yeah, I'm like, 20 inches of snow? I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said her app was showing her that. So she took a picture of the app and she sent it to me. And yeah, it showed like 22 inches of snow. So I was like, okay. I jumped on my computer and I started looking at all this information. The highest snow total I saw out of all the data that I look at was 12, not 22. 12. And that was one model. All the other models were between like maybe 7 and 10. And yet her app was printing out 22. And I said, Mom, disregard it. I said, here's what I'm thinking. This is what we're looking at right now. And it was like a 6 to 12 inch snowfall. That's what we were looking at. The next day, that 22-inch snow dropped all the way down to 15. And I said, Mom, I think there's still more room for this thing to fall, your app. It did. It dropped all the way down to eventually 7 or 8. So you just don't know where all this information is. And everybody has an app today. Everybody. Look at how many. Just go into your search thing and type in weather app or whatever, or weather. A million of them pop up. Who knows where the data's coming from? So it's, the apps are difficult. What I always say with an app, it's hard to mess up the next 48 hours, okay? So I feel like you're pretty safe when you're using an app within a 48-hour or maybe even a 72-hour stretch. You get beyond that, though, and I'd be really, really cautious, especially when you're planning things outdoors. I'd be really, really careful. Also, here's another thing that I would do. When you look at your phone app, okay, you will see days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you're going to get an icon. All right, and let's say this past week was a perfect example. Every day there was a chance of a shower or thunderstorm, right? Every day when you looked at the icon, it looked like it was going to be a rain day. It showed the sun, but it showed a huge cloud with rain. Well, how are you supposed to make outdoor plans like that, right? So here's another thing that I suggest when you're using the app. Click on the day and look at the hourly forecast, okay? Because what will happen here is when you look at this big sun and clouds with a thunderstorm icon, you're thinking, oh, shoot, we're going to get rain, we're going to get thunderstorms. And then when you click the hourly forecast, it might be sunny through about 6 o'clock in the evening. And then a thunderstorm comes at 7 or 8. But yet the big thunderstorm icon is on the day. So click on the day and look at the hourly stuff if you're going to use the apps, especially beyond 3 days out. Randy says, do you feel that the limited amount of balloon launches that are happening now has really made forecasting much more difficult? What weather data is affected the most as a result? That's a good question. That's a very good question. Obviously, when you're not putting those balloons up there, it doesn't help. So it's certainly not making things easier for us. We did have a stretch where the forecast modeling, especially over the winter, was a mess. It was a mess. It was getting everything wrong. And, a lot of the blame was because of not putting the balloons up. I don't know whether or not I was told that we've got that fixed now and that they make it a priority, even if they're a short-staffed weather service station, they make it a priority to launch those balloons now. I thought I read something like that, so I don't know if that is as much of a problem now as it was like 6 months ago. But I do know like 6 months ago it was a big problem, and it was causing us headaches because the modeling was a mess. All right, let's see. Lois says, who needs an app? We have you. That's awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Dave says, thank you so much for keeping it real and explaining everything in simple terms. I'm trying my best. Thank you. Some of this stuff is very technical, so I'm glad you guys are able to follow it. Carol says, you're exactly right 100%. Mary says, that's what I do with the apps. She clicks on the hourly. Okay, good call there. John says, I only rely on you for weather forecasts. Chris, you're the best. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Chris, you explain everything so well. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. That's what I do too. She has the Patricia says she has the AccuWeather app. She looks at the hourly stuff. Okay. Nancy says, thanks for explaining everything. We learned a lot from you. Thanks again. Waiting on your app. It's coming. I was just on the phone with him 2 days ago. It's coming. What happens is it's in the development phase. They've got to, I'm not the technical guy. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they do it. But there's all these little things that go into it, in order for me to get videos in there, and in order for you to, let's say a warning gets issued, you got to get the warning right through the app. So that all this stuff goes into the app, and they're working all the technical stuff out. It is pretty interesting. Chuck says, I'm off Friday. Sounds like a good day to run my RC cars and trucks. Friday's going to be a good day. Donna says, I only rely on you, Chris. Thank you. Karen says, can't wait for the app. I'll get rid of the rest. Okay, now, hold on. I want to make sure, because there's what do they call it, a caveat, or an asterisk. All right, I want to put an asterisk next to the sentence real quick, because I want to make sure that you guys understand this. Okay, the data from the app. Now, I'm likely going to run my app through IBM, the weather company, okay? So I have to find out where the data that is, for example, if you put in zip code, 19137 or whatever it is, I think that's Philly, or 19131, and then you'll see, forecast for the next 7 days come up, okay? I've got to find out where that data is being drawn from, okay? And so I'll talk with the weather company, and, I'll pick their brains and say, okay, look, is this the GFS model that's showing this? Is it the European? Is it, some kind of, custom-made model that you guys own, like the Groff or something like that? And they'll let me know. And then when I get that information, I'll let you know, okay? Because some models are a lot more accurate than others. And if there's ever a question, just get in touch with me. Send me a message, on one of my platforms. On YouTube, it's at Chris Sowers Weather. My website is sourskywatch.com, and obviously you're on my Facebook page right now. Nancy says, you are the one and only meteorologist I listen to or watch. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you. Mr. Murphy Pants update. And then I got to go in because all of a sudden the breeze stopped, and it is awful out here again. I can feel the sweat building under my nose. Woo! Okay, so I brought Mr. Murphy Pants up to the Mount Laurel Animal Hospital today, and I talked to a very intelligent doctor. He's been taking care of Murphy. He's the one that, Murphy was in good hands when he was in the ICU, about a month ago, or maybe it's a little more than a month ago. And so, he was on all this medication. I told you guys before, he had an infection, he had pancreatitis, and he had pneumonia. We knocked all of that out. It's all gone. But then he developed the bronchitis, and that's where we are right now. So, because of some of the heart meds that he's on, some of the medications that they want to put him on, they really can't, because they weren't sure with interactions. But then when I went up to in combination with the heart meds, what this new bronchitis med would do, all right. But one of the things that the doctor told me up there was some of the medication that he just prescribed for Murphy is going to be better for him anyway. So they put him on it's an inhaler. And I laughed when I heard this, and I'm like, okay, how in the world am I going to get Murphy to, use an inhaler, right? And so it's really, really neat. We just bought this thing. It's about that big. And the thing, it's big enough to where it goes over the mouth and the nose, and you push this button, and he breathes it in for like 5 or 6 seconds. And he told me not all of it's going to get in him, but enough of it gets in him to where it should do a significant number on the cough and the bronchitis, and it should help to clear his lungs. One of the positive signs that we had with Murphy today was when they listened to him breathe, they said his lungs sounded good. Even though his cough is awful right now, they said his lungs actually sounded really, really well. His heart sounded better. So, we get the medicine. We're going to get this inhaler thing tomorrow. And I think tomorrow's going to be the first day where I get to actually put him on this medicine. Obviously, everything takes time. So, I'm going to give it at least a week and see how he does. We couldn't put him on the actual pills because he has diabetes, okay? And if we were to put him on the pill makes his sugar go nuts. And then he's drinking all the time and peeing all the time. And, and we finally got his sugar levels controlled, consistently now. I didn't want to mess with all that, and neither did the doctor. So that's why we went the route of the inhaler. And hopefully we get, some good things going here in the next week, and we can clear this. But it might be something that Murphy has to deal with on and off, for the rest of his life. It's just, like he's got the heart arrhythmia, I think it's called. So he's going to be on 2 heart meds for the rest of his life. And he can live another 5, 6, 7 years on it because the medications, help him with it. But he's always going to have the heart arrhythmia, I think it's called. So there's going to be 2 medications for that. He's always going to have the diabetes. So I got to give him his insulin shot twice a day, every day for the rest of his life. He's always going to have that. And so I'm hoping I don't got to give him this inhaler every day for the rest of his life. I just feel so bad. My little buddy's been through so much. And I just want to get him all better. But, the good news is he's eating. He wants to eat. It's not, trust me, he's there. The second I've got food, that's what he's like on my knee. He's got his head on my knee like, hello, I'm here. You going to give me some? So he's back to his normal self. He eats everything we put in front of him. And he, like I said, he wants everything that I have. He goes to bathroom all the time. He has no problem pooing, let me tell you, because I'm always out here picking it up. So that's good, all right? When he had the pneumonia, I could only walk him 2 houses down the street. That was it. And he would be out of gas. And sometimes I'd have to carry him back. Now I'll walk him a mile and a half, and he's fine. All right, some days he's a little more energetic than others, but I can walk him like a mile and a half now, and he'll do it. So, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, holy cow, it's almost 8:30, and I think I've lost about 5 pounds already. So, thank you so much for listening to me. Hope you guys have a better understanding of how this all works. I am actually going to call the National Weather Service. I'm going to get on the phone with them tomorrow, and I'm going to see whether or not they will allow me to get up there during a severe weather event and stream it live so you guys can actually see. You guys can actually see what they do, and you can get a better feeling for why watches and warnings are issued, so you have a complete understanding. I think that would be really, really cool. Again, I don't know if they can even do it. I mean, they're a government agency. I don't know if they can even do it, but I'll ask them and see if they can, and hopefully they can. Okay, so that's going to do it for me. I forget how to turn all this off, so bear with me. I got a standby screen. Ready? So once I hit the standby screen, you're not going to see my mic, or you're not going to hear me because the mic's closed. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 7:30. Okay? Okay. Good night.